Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here with a video on whether or not there are truly safe sets in soccer, and if parallels are truly safe. This is a bit of an all-encompassing video on my thoughts about parallels at the moment, and how I think we've gone a little parallel crazy as a collective soccer hobby. So let's go ahead and get into it. To start, we'll be on the Card Ladder site, because they have a lot of useful analytics for soccer cards, which is what we're going to be going through. They have historical data, which we'll take a peek at later, but we'll start with the index. And if you guys know about the index, I'm not the biggest fan of the index, because if we look at the cards, while, you know, the high price ones are cards you recognize, right? Also on the low end, they don't really update this, and it's kind of just a bunch of old stuff that no one really cared about. So I think that, you know, a large segment of this whole index isn't very useful, but I do think that, you know, for the most part, they do have some of the biggest cards, which does help, you know, sort of show what's happened, right? So when we look at this graph, right, this really demonstrates a lot of what's happened with soccer. I think the last year is a lot more of a stabling point than most would think, but this is also kind of a high end coming back down to normal. See, if this chart peaks in 2022, which if you know anything about cards is kind of weird, because truly we peaked in 2021, I think this is more the high end sort of keeping up until 2022 and vintage as well. I mean, you know, it's still held strong, and now sort of all of that's reset, and I think we're now back down to a pretty good point. All in all, we're down, you know, a decent bit, 67, well, closer to 60, 65% from the top, and if you go from the bottom, we're up, you know, 5x-ish. So keep that in mind. From pre-boom to now, the index is up close to 5x, and from, you know, top to, you know, where we are now, probably down 60%. So it depends how you want to look at it, but keep that in mind as we go forward. So we're going to be taking a look at Prism bases for some of the base card comparisons before we take a look at the parallels. Reason being is because, you know, this is what happened to a type of card that's very plentiful and just at the ready to be sold to basically anyone. Back in 2014, it was basically worth the price of grading. You can see a 10, a 30, a 20 sale, a 10, a 12. You know, nothing too crazy. It doesn't even get sold for a while because no one really cares. And then the hobby kicks off, and more in particular, the Prism boom kicks off in 2020 during the bubble, the NBA bubble. Once NBA stopped, Prism soccer really hit big. That's what happened, and slowly it's basically dwindled back to where it probably should have been. You know, a decent card, a decent set, or a pretty good set seen by many, and, you know, it still sort of has its spot, but it certainly isn't what it was at one point in time. Nonetheless, a lot of people still consider 2014 one of the go-to ultramodern sets along with Topps Chrome. There are some others that can be sprinkled in, but for the most part, those are the two that get talked about, so that's what we'll focus on. So as you can see here, this is up 1,200% from the original sale to now, so up pretty big. If we put in the Ronaldo, it's not quite the same story. Now, part of that's Ronaldo's recent sort of downfall, and also part of that's just the original one sold a bit higher. So $16 compared to $50. So this one's up, you know, 2x. 3x. So basically, if you combine both of them, you know, one going up 3x, the other one going up 12x, you know, you're close to around what the soccer card index said, right? 5, 6x, somewhere in there, and that's where these are collectively, so that makes sense. So we'll go to the other end of the spectrum now with the 2014 Prism Gold out of 10 Messi, just to see what the polar opposite end of the hobby has done. So this PSA 9 recently sold for, if Card Ladder's going to load, it says 93,000. Yep, there it is. So we can see the card itself, PSA 9, old slab, went for 93,000. Very high price compared to actually a peak. If we scroll back a little bit further, it did peak at 204,000. So right here, actually same slab, sold for, you know, more than double what the last sale has done. There's also been a PSA 10 that went for 522,000. And so yeah, I mean, these are very expensive cards. Again, just sort of keeping the general gauge in mind, you know, 5, 6, maybe a 10x. If you considered that for these types of prices, well, you would be led to imagine that, you know, those cards were maybe 50K pre-boom, you know, maybe more, maybe less, but 30 to 50 probably. When we check date sold, I mean, back when it was released in 2014, there's no picture, but this one says yellow in the title, also gold, and it sold for 405, which is a lot lower than the perceived estimate. Now, of course, you know, when there's something only out of 10, you know, the astronomical rise can be much more severe, but just as equally, you know, the downfall can be just as severe. So both sides have to be accounted for. Looking at the remaining sales, though, there's this base that went for 740. We also then have some 2018 sales, which is good to see how it was sort of moving prior to the big boom. So as you can see here, this one goes for 1,500. It looks like raw to me. This one goes for 1,000, which looks like raw. And this one at the bottom of the screen went for 946. So when we look at these three, 1,500, 1,000, 946. So from 2014 to 2018, 2019, it went up 2 to 3x, you know, pretty reasonable. And then you go from 2019 to current day, and these are up, you know, maybe 100x, 50x at least, within the last 3 years. And really, while they have shown signs of going down, yes, this one's gone from 500, this one's gone from, you know, 200 to now 90. They don't trade enough to really get a full glimpse of what's going on back there, so there's really just a lot of question marks. And then we go to the 2017 Topps Chrome Gold Ronaldo. Here, a PSA 10 recently went for 5.9 thousand, which, yeah, I mean, decent penny, actually down quite a bit. All time, this peaked at 17.4 last year, numbered 33 out of 50 there on Golden, so still down, I mean, you know, quite a bit, maybe 60%. That sort of matches up what we've seen on the you know, soccer index, a fall of, you know, maybe 60%, and that sort of matches there. That might be a little tougher. PSA 9 jersey number has been attempted to be sold on eBay 3 times now and has not sold. Maybe 4 times. I just keep seeing it every time I scroll. Nonetheless, you know, really hard to find a 9 comp. We'll just assume the 9 comps maybe 2 to 3,000, something along those lines. A 10 is 6. And when we go back in time, you know, we'll see that back in 2019, 2 years after Topps Chrome Gold was released, those cards were $50 and $56. This is an award winner during 2020, so it's a different card. It's an insert in the set. Still a good card, but as you can see, $50, $50, and now if you go to recent days sold, 6,000, 7.8 thousand, 3,000. I mean, just crazy prices, at least relative to what was being paid at one point in time. And I just find this interesting. I don't know if it's, you know, a huge deal to anyone else, but the autos in this set are basically uncared for. There was a PSA 10 that recently sold for $3,900 on Golden earlier this year of an orange Ronaldo. Typically, in my head, you know, the assumption made hopping from a PSA 9 to a 10 is a 2 to 3x. So assuming that, let's just say the price of this Ronaldo is $1,500 to $2,000 raw, something like that. Now, back in the day, that same auto sold here. It says Champions League Showcase. I'm unsure why they use Showcase in the title, but they do say Chrome, so I am to believe that this is 2017 Chrome. That same card sold for $405. So because that card had an auto on it, it went from $405 to, you know, maybe $1,500 to $2,000. That's up 4x, maybe 5x. That's, you know, a lot more in line, right? But again, when we go back and look at something like the gold that just sort of caught such a narrative, you know, this has gone from being a $50 card back in the day to now a $2,000, $3,000 card. I mean, think about the multiplier that has. That's a 40 to 60x multiplier when comparatively the auto only went up like 4x. It barely did that much. Now, to be fair, the auto has, you know, to go up further, and it's just a sticker autograph, so I sort of get all of the complaints you could make, but it's just interesting to see. And then finally, we'll end off with the 2018 treble set. I don't really think that this set matches the level of a 2017 Chrome or 2014 Prism, but I do think it matches the same level of pump within the collecting space that, you know, some of the other sets have experienced. This one notably has been pushed by a couple soccer card influencers, and, you know, there's very notable booms around the times when they sort of push them, so that's more so what I'm talking to at the moment. But we'll look at recent messy trebles, right? So this 2018 blue went for $1,400. If we look before that, this purple raw did $1,200. The reason that this set is seen as desirable by some is because, you know, the color is a full background, and you also don't have a ton of parallels, so that's sort of the enticing factor. At the same time, you know, I don't really think the pictures ever come out looking good. If you get them in the right light, you can sort of see these like small streaks that are behind it that make it look better. But honestly, one of the worst cards ever to try to photograph. None of them really look good. I mean, this gold looks, you know, pretty bland, if we're being honest. Nonetheless, this gold goes for $4,000. More importantly, and the, you know, the comp will come to find at some point or another here. I might just have to do it the old-fashioned way and type in green. By doing that, we'll find a couple comps here. The first 3 that you'll see are right here, right? So 2022, it was pumped, I believe, at the beginning of 2022. Could be wrong about that, but I believe that was the pump time. And as you can see, the raw sold for $8,000. At least eBay says, you know, no way to fully know, but that's the comp. We then have a golden PSA 8 that goes for $4,700 later that year. And then this year, a PSA 8 on eBay does $5,900. So we've seen 3 of the 10 trebles go, and they went for $8,000, $5,000, $6,000. And then if we go to the bottom sale, that you don't see that is off the screen. This is in December 30th of 2019, basically 2020, and it had sold for $50. So again, essentially a card that, you know, was still worth something, but $50 in the Messi realm wasn't anything that crazy back in the day. And now that same $50 card is, you know, going for many a thousands multiple times over. To further hammer the point home, I'll just scroll through Card Ladder cards that are on here and sort of take a peek. I mean, look at this Messi, right? I mean, it's crested. Let's just do that. The crest test. Has this graph crested? Yeah, the crest was up here, came down, right? Okay, great. This Diego Maradona crested a lot and then came down and seems to have crested the other way potentially, but whatever. Matchups Ronaldo Messi. Crested 2021. I mean, that looks, you know, that looks pretty steep for being 2014 Prism, being all safe. That's crested, right? Okay. Just generally speaking, most anything that's been released for a decent bit of time has crested, right? This Mbappe, crested. This Johan Cruyff Palarex, surely crested. Again, if I was going to buy something at this point in time because I enjoy it, you know, typically I'd want to make sure that it's crested. I would really like to have seen that. Now, honestly, you know, even this Topps Chrome Gold Ronaldo at this point has crested. So some of these things, you know, I do understand. Now, I think a bit more of this happens to be the gold correction and the Ronaldo correction rather than the set itself correcting all that much. Cristiano Ronaldo had a tough year in Qatar. Gold also at one point in time was seen as this like almost untouchable thing that should be held above everything in the hobby. That's not really the case, so I think that's part of why that's crested. Alternatively, something like this is going to be the graph that terrifies me to no end. So we have a green raw 2017 Topps Chrome Messi. And if we look, basically, this is the graph. Like, it has not really crested. I mean, there were signs of it up there. I guess it's a bit lower, right? But ultimately a graph that in 2018, 10 to 13 bucks for the sales here in 2018. If we look at 2020, you know, starts to go up to 100, 200, 300, and then goes to 500, then goes to 700 in 2023. Again, anything peaking in 2023 just kind of scares me in general, because as we've seen in soccer, you know, narratives don't tend to really last because there's just so much stuff, and that's what we'll get to now. So taking a look at the soccer card tag on Instagram, keep in mind this is going to contain typically younger, more recent soccer items than, you know, say a Discord forum or even like a Facebook forum or something like that, right? But if we look around, I mean, just look at the absolute amount of options that soccer gives people. You can go and collect so many different things from so many different years with so many different unique features. There is just sort of an infinite pool to pull from. I mean, much bigger than, you know, most anyone gives it credit for, at least from what I see. And, you know, what a lot of collectors make it feel like is that there's only a few sets that are truly collectible, when in reality, that's more so a narrative that gets pushed and sort of feeds into itself than actually being the truth. There are plenty of sets being collected in soccer, more so plenty of players and plenty of teams being collected in soccer, and at least at the, you know, more modern collector era, I think that that's sort of how it works. The further you go back, the more set collectors there are and all that stuff, but even back then, you know, I don't think, I mean, ask yourself this, what is the set in soccer, right? A lot of people say Chrome or Prism. Sure, whatever. I mean, if you want to say those two, I understand it. Pick a real set. Pick a set that doesn't have numbers in it, right? Is there one? I don't think so. I don't think people have said that there is. I've heard claims in the past, oh, 2004 Mega Cracks is. Do you see a 2004 Mega Cracks card on this entire page? I don't know if I saw one. If so, it was probably Messi. I know I saw like a Team Barca one, but I didn't see like a true 2004 League release one, I don't think. I mean, is there a 1970 Panini in here? You know, people like that sticker set. That's, in my opinion, the best set ever, but, you know, teach their own. Stickers are also sort of sus at the moment, so all that stuff has to play itself out. But yeah, I don't see any 1970 stickers. I don't see any 2004 Mega Cracks, and those are theoretically like the two sets I would actually say should be collectible from just their truest standpoint, right? Not the colors, not the 101s, you know? You don't even see them on here. no one cares, no one's talking about it. Instead, I mean, nowadays you do see a lot of patch auto stuff, you see a lot of parallels, just, I mean, absolutely flooded. And part of me wonders, is any of this rare, right? You know, so many people freaking out about numbers. Yeah, I don't know who this is, but he's very smiley about his hit, presumably. I mean, that's how people are about all these cards. They're very excited for all of them. And, you know, I don't know if I'm crazy here, but I don't quite feel the same. But yeah, that's going to be it for my video today. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like. If you didn't, also, you know, let me know, leave a dislike. That's fine too. I understand that this isn't necessarily a popular video to make in the sense that I am going to be having a take that a lot of people might not have or that might go against theirs. And thus there's a little bit of a give and take there, but hopefully you understand and, you know, hopefully it made you think. That's really the point of it all at the end. So that's going to be it for today. If you want some more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully have a wonderful day and peace.